Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Say Report. I'm your host, Devon Decker, and joining me, my host companion, the hostess with the mostest, is Sejohn. Hi, Sejohn. We're actually recording now, I promise.
There's been crime, Devon. There's been hockey crime that we need to talk about.
There's been hockey crime.
There's been all sorts of hockey crime this week.
I was unaware of all this hockey crime going on. The extent of my hockey this week is somebody dressed as Darth Maul with a twin-bladed hockey stick, and I want a twin-bladed hockey stick now. That seems like the coolest thing ever.
Well, in your neck of the woods and in my neck of the woods, we got two different things going on, and I couldn't believe that there were two hockey crimes this week.
Well, Sejohn, I mean, it's been a long time. It may have been forever since we've done a crime beat specifically for hockey. But before we get to that, Beetlejuice, your move, motherfucker. What you got for me, Sejohn? Talking to me.
So we'll do the one on your end is just pretty dumb and it's pretty much, but so I guess you didn't hear that the Bruins kicked the Leafs ass 5-1 apparently.
Oh, I watched that last night. It was excellent. It was fan.
Yeah, apparently after the game, one of the Leafs players tried to walk off with the game hockey puck, and the referees had to get involved to be like, no, that's not how this works.
Well, I mean, I scored the one goal for my team, eh? I feel I've earned it, eh? Sorry.
So you would know better than me. Is it, in baseball, you can go through 4 baseballs in a fucking game easily, more than that, depending on what goes on with the ball and stuff. Is that common in hockey as well? Is the puck constantly getting changed up?
I mean,
something?
The puck does get changed around. It depends on the game. To quote Clerks, a film that we will cover later on, they only bring the one ball, and so when that one ball goes away, they can't play hockey on the roof anymore. No, there would be, when I would play, there would be buckets and bags of pucks in case something were to happen.
Yeah, so and football does this too, right?
Yeah.
That's the
you have multiple. Yeah, you can't just have one ball.
Well, so the way
Even basketball
the way the story's been going around is just this one Leafs player just trying to run away with the game hockey puck, and everybody was like, "Get him!"
That's good for him. I honestly, I don't know who it is. I came into the game late. I stopped watching the game once it was Bruins were ahead 1-0 in the second period. I'm like, let's watch something else. Let's try to enjoy the night. We'll come back to the game a little bit later. And then when we came back, it was 1-4, and then we watched them score an open goal net, and it's yeah, okay. So the Bruins, they won this game. And that's the last I've heard of it. I have a sociological, ecological, anthropological experiment I've been doing this week that we'll talk about later on. So that's sort of what I've been doing all morning, is just finishing my findings on that. So thank you for monitoring the hockey wire. I appreciate it. That's funny to me because I don't know, I've won championships in hockey. I've been on winning basketball, baseball teams, but the game ball, I've never really understood the appeal of it, and because there are so many being used. So that's insane to me.
Well, and I'm so used to baseball where any time a ball goes out of play, it just gets thrown to an audience member or something.
There's a bucket of 30 balls, and they go through 2 of those somehow.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so but no, the bigger crime was on my end of the country, Dev. We stole a straight up hockey team
from Arizona. I mean,
yeah.
I do the proposed uniforms.
There's just been so much. Which one is that?
It's just Mormons on ice, which is why I really enjoy it. And I'm Mormons more like what you see in the Book of Mormon or Orgasm. I don't know if that's how they really dress. I've never been to Utah, nay, Salt Lake City, the Mecca of the Mormon religion. But that idea of white button-down shirt, red tie, black slacks, and it's just a team of that on the ice. It was very funny to me. So
that's a pretty standard missionary attire. The Mormon missionaries would definitely, the Utah missionaries would definitely be a team name. That's the big talk this week, is everybody just trying to figure out the team name. And it's never been more obvious to me how much Utah does not seem to really care. Like Utahns in general are just like, we got a what now this week? Whereas like the reaction from like all of the Arizona fans are just like they're just losing their minds because this team is leaving. And like I get it. This is like I totally understand like that feeling of just like this team like packing up and leaving and that being a huge part of your life. Like we lost a minor league baseball team or are going to lose a minor league baseball team here in a little bit and it's already kind of starting with that. But like the difference in reaction between the Arizona fans who are just like losing their minds because this team is leaving and the Salt Lake, who half the people I talk to, more than that, don't even know what's going. Like we're getting a hockey team now. What's happening? It's wild. Like I don't understand this move at all for the team. I guess the guys that bought them are some bigwigs out here that own like the Jazz and stuff like that. So on this end, so like I guess I kind of see them wanting to collect them all. They've been talking about wanting a baseball team for a while. A hockey team makes sense, but like I just this is a level of which sports just never connected with me. Like I don't understand why like a team can just be just picked up and moved like this when it wasn't that like, hey, they've been doing so poorly and they have no fans and nobody shows up, so we're gonna try them in a different city. We've seen that happen, and like that makes sense to me. But this clearly was not the case. People loved them in Arizona, the Coyotes.
I mean, it's weird. I'm in so many minds right now. First of all, I had to get out the basketball, the Jazz moved to Utah where they don't allow music joke. That's all I could think of when I think of any team moving to Utah. So hopefully they have a good name for the hockey team. And then I also think about like the Simpsons did it of it all, where the Springfield Isotopes are going to get moved to Santa Fe. And like this is a big enough deal that it was lampooned into Simpsons. Like this is like it's such a universal thing. But you're not wrong. Living in New England, right, where our teams are like 100-year-old institutions, the thought of a team moving is so foreign to me.
Yeah.
I don't even know. The closest that I have to it is the Pawtucket Red Sox got turned into the Worcester Red Sox. And like weirdly that I didn't feel that one as much. Like McCoy Stadium.
Well, they were still the Red Sox, I guess, and they were only a town over. I don't know. It's weird.
I don't know. I mean, but then I also think like imagine being a Baltimore Colts fan in March of 1984, 40 years ago, where Robert Irsay, like under the cover of darkness, moves the team to Indianapolis. Yeah. Like just overnight, go fuck yourself. We ain't here anymore. Like
it's kind of feeling close to that up here. I got to be honest with all of this shit though. Like the ways in which fans and the teammates of the Arizona Coyotes have been reacting to this move, it really does feel like this was a bit of a surprise to a good number of people. I'm sure to some people in the organization, they've been talking about this for a while and it was not a surprise at all. But like there is more than enough people who have been just like, what the hell happened? I woke up and my team was moving.
Well, I think the weirder thing about it for me, where like I'm coming, like the move of Baltimore to Indianapolis, right? Probably being the most famous one that actually happened in sports, because of the fact that like, oh yeah, no, like we're not telling anybody, we're just doing it. It happened in March, which is not when football is going on. Football is very much a fall and winter sport, and then by the spring it's over, right? The Super Bowl historically took place in January, now it takes place in February. So it's like the season is over and now we're going to move the team so that when the next season starts, it's all established. The hockey season literally just started the playoffs. The playoffs started like yesterday. That's why the whole Maple Leafs Bruins thing is news. It's really like a big fuck you, like, all right, Arizona, you didn't do dick with your team this year, and we're moving it to Utah for next season. Like, there are still eyes and cameras and journalists reporting on hockey right now. It's a hell of a time to be doing it. Like, yeah, that's, Yeah, that's whew.
Yeah, I don't know. For us out in Utah, I think the closest thing that people are truly going to ever experience to this is in a few years when we potentially lose Sundance, and that'll be a fucking wild day. But like that's the equivalent of like a big old sports team out here, really. Like as much as the Jazz is, the Jazz is capable of stirring up a fervor out here. Like it
Oh yeah.
definitely there are those moments where the Jazz are doing good in a season, and suddenly people are paying attention and all that, but it is nothing compared to like what we grew up with in New England and like the Red Sox or the Patriots, or even being in Ohio, and the big thing in Ohio is college,
Yeah.
like University
The
yeah,
Ohio
Ohio,
State University.
yeah, the Ohio State, like being
Which
like
we
just
might
like a
get sued
legit
for
there.
that. I'm not sure. Didn't they try
Well,
to
that's why I was trying to
trademark
figure
that?
out how to say what.
Whatever. Come for me. I've been watching a lot of The Good Fight lately. I feel like I could at least make an argument in a courtroom. I know I haven't passed the
Yeah.
bar or anything like that, but
Well, that's because like you're not supposed to say the Super Duper Bowl, right? And
yeah.
whatever, fuck 'em.
I really am a fan of the Superb Owl as
Yeah.
the way around that one, but yeah. Good times. Great oldies. B101. That's not us either. It is just fun to say. Yeah.
So what have you been up to this
So
morning,
what
Dev?
have I
You
been
wanna?
up? Oh, okay. It's all right. So right now we are immersed in Haulathon, which is the crazy event that Target does in order to sell more collectibles, and it's been really strange because all of the Haulathon stuff wound up in stores back in March. Like literally, people went to the stores in March, could buy everything. But now, what they're trying to do, I'm gonna see if I can bring this up, so I have it. Fill for time, Sejohn. No, I'm sure.
Oh, why? you, so to be clear, like broke street date, but like on their own shit. I
But
think that's the wildest part of that story to me is like this isn't some other product that came in that was buying shelf space from them. This is in hand with Target. This promotion is going on, and they couldn't keep a lid on that shit. That's like a terrible look.
yeah. So Haulathon is every Friday from April 12th to May 10th. Looking at my own purchases, come on, load more purchases. I purchased one of the figures on April 5th at a store, but like I was in Kingston, Massachusetts at a Target and saw that figure that I ended up purchasing later on. That was on March 30th. But yeah, it's supposed to be, this is this event that we're a part of. We've teamed up with NECA, and we're going to release these items every Friday. And it makes it like a destination, right? The idea then is we bring the people in for these collectibles, but hey, we're already at Target. I guess I'll do my shopping here today, or all this other stuff. And weirdly, we'll get to why it's so weird. Because they didn't break street date on something else that was a big deal that happened this past week that I had completely forgotten was happening. But, so last Friday was the first weekend of Haulathon, and they put up a bunch of stuff on the website, but you could not get it in stores. Like, the stores didn't have it this day of for it. It was only an online event. And then, after having been, like, sick most of last week, I had a car every day this week. So I'm like, I'm going to start every day this week. I'm going to go to Target. And I know that's ridiculous. I know how like crazy that sounds, but I wanted to like see how Target stocks. And also it gave me like a thing to wake up and do. So every morning this week at 8:00, I walked through the doors of the Target that's like a mile from where I work.
Yeah, it's just one of those little weird things you start doing as a collector. There's always that kind of weird habit you find yourself getting into. Like my dad plays with. My dad collects and builds model trains and shit, right?
Yeah.
And like so that leads to just like every town we're ever in, like looking for a hobby shop, and it's like that weird thing that you do when you go out of your way to do when you're a collector, just cause like, yeah, I get it. You don't have to justify your Target habits to us.
Right. Well, I don't think I'm going to keep doing it. Actually, I think it's been pretty good because it kind of broke me in this way that's a positive break. Because, like, it's very easy to just go online. You're not thinking about it. order stuff, and then like suddenly, holy shit, I spent $700 on collectibles because there was no stop. Going into Target every day this week. First of all, big shout out to the Hot Wheels collectors. I love that they have like, there was never more than one, but there was always one guy already at the Hot Wheels section. I don't know how, because like they open at 8 o'clock. He's already in the Hot Wheels section looking through the cars, hoping to find something new. It was pretty great. And I understand how insane it is to be like, way to go, Hot Wheels collectors, when like I'm looking for Ninja Turtle stuff. That's one of the big things I'm looking for. And they've been around for 40 years. So like, it's not just Hot Wheels that have been around and have been like cultivating these collectors. Many of the other things that are collectibles right now on the shelves are there. But going in, like I learned this little community of people who are at Target early. I've seen a lot. I was the first person rung out at Target a bunch of times, just because like the self-checkout stuff is not open. And it's like,
did they ring the big bell for you? The big first person of the day bell?
No. No, but there would be no open registers. So someone would have to come over and open up a register in order to ring me out, which was an interesting thing. And the first day was the only day I found anything related to Haulathon. I found another one of the foot soldiers that's supposed to be on sale. That again, I bought one on the 5th and I saw them as early as the 30th. And also, that's on the East Coast. Like all this stuff really started to show up in stores on the West Coast. So like it trickles over to us in a weird way. But regardless of that, I did some things I wanted to try out. Like the mini brands stuff. Have you seen these little basically loot boxes in real life that exist?
I mean, you mean like are they like mystery bags?
They're like balls. They kind of look like Pokeballs, and then you open up and
but they're like mystery toys. Yeah, you don't know what's inside.
Right? You don't know what's inside. I found out that they do a book series of them, and they're tiny little books. And I thought that might be fun for some of the photography I've been doing is to have some books. So I bought 4 of these book bags this week. I'm like, I'm not going to go further than it. Sejohn, I got to say, I'm as disappointed as I am that I have 3 copies of Dogman Unleashed in tiny little book form. And in one of those, 2 of those copies came in one same bag. Like ball mini mystery bullshit. Like that's true randomization though. So I have to give them credit for that. Like there's not someone there like putting their finger on the scale making sure that everything is varied. But 2 of the ones I bought, I opened up and I got doubles of the same books. And that felt a little like that's not fun. Like if I were a kid, I don't think I'd be happy about that.
Well, that also says to me is there's maybe not a wide selection right now too.
Yeah. So. Well, I mean, like, and I don't know if it's because I was going from the bottom or from the top, but, like, I have all of the miniature versions of Dave Pickley's Dogman books, and I have multiples of them. Every one I opened came with a paperback copy of Bunnicula in miniature form. So I'm going to have some fun with it and that. But, like, that's the thing that I experimented with was, like, I'll just buy this every day and see how this works. Probably never buying a mini blind bag mystery thing again because of, like, it was kind of disheartening every time to open it up and be like, oh, now I have 3 copies of Dogman Unleashed. Mm-hmm. Yay. Like, that was weird.
Yeah, it's what turned me off a lot of the minifig blind stuff with Lego is I don't know if it's just because, like, I don't have too many places I can go and get that sort of stuff around here. So it's like Smith's and Target and things like that. Smith's is the Kroger of Utah, by the way.
Thank you.
It's the same. It's like
Kroger
the same
is the Stop and Shop of Ohio, by the way. Yeah. No, I'm good. Good times.
But anyway, so like I got really kind of turned off to all the Lego minifig stuff because especially once they started doing like whatever like packaging inside to try and make it so that people couldn't feel for different pieces. They like put like cardboard in with them now.
Now they're all cardboard. Now they're no longer bags. They're cardboard, and you cannot feel through the cardboard. But it's also really easy to open it up and see what it is. So that's causing a whole problem. I found one on the shelf. This is unrelated. I wouldn't think I was going to tell this one. And it was like clearance, so I'm like, I'll buy this, whatever. And it didn't have legs. Like, so either they fell out, they weren't packed, or somebody opened it and took the
Somebody stole
legs
them,
from
yeah.
it.
But yeah, I got really kind of turned off to all that because you'd buy those bags and it'd be the same, you'd buy a handful of them and it'd be the same figure 3 out of the 5 times, and you're just like, okay, like I know that that's part of the whole like deal with this thing, but it really kind of the magic disappears real quick once you realize the joke, right? Like it all kind of stops being
Yeah.
fun. So
Well, I mean, the bags were specifically bad. Like the Muppet ones, I'm so happy I was able to find a Kermit, but by the end of it, all that were there were Dr. Bunsen honeydews because you could feel his head. So, like, people
yeah.
would feel and be like, well, I don't want another one of him. There were like 7 of him on their shelf once. And I'm like, those are
The
never going
big
to sell.
the big one out here around Christmas last year is they did the Nutcracker series where
Okay.
you could get all the different little characters in the Nutcracker, and yeah, it was just a bummer to get the Sugar Plum Fairy like 3 times in a row when you're just like, okay, like this is supposed to be a fun thing for Christmas and this is no longer fun. So
Yeah.
bye bye.
Like, it
Like
gets to that point where it's the only one left or it's the one that nobody wants, and it's very easy to find out because, like, of the wand or the shorter legs. Like, so I'm happy
well,
they
it's not like
moved.
I had, yeah, and it's not like I had a bunch of the other ones already. So, like, I was kind of, like, you kind of run that risk when you're starting to look for a very specific one. You're going to be very disappointed when you don't find that very specific one. And that's kind of on you, right? But the idea that I could have, I think there were 6 figures altogether in it, and I got a Nutcracker, a Sugar Plum Fairy, and then 2 more Sugar Plum Fairies, and I was just like, all right, I can't, I can't keep going down this road because like there's 4 other potential characters I could have gotten instead of these 2 dupes. It was not worth it.
Yeah. I mean, the peak for that with me was Series 10 when they did the Mr. Gold, and I found a Mr. Gold, and it's like, I don't know if I should do this anymore. Like, that was a cool thing to hunt for, but having like that chase, I think there are only like 64 or 100 of them. There was a small number of them. I have not looked into my Mr. Gold in a while, but to find him at like a random target and be like, oh, okay, I did it. Like, good for me. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. And I'm very happy about the boxes because there's no way to tell what's inside of it. And also, they do like a 6-pack for about $25, which is kind of like getting one for free. And then I'll open up one a day. And that I've never had repeats in so far, fingers crossed. I don't know if they're looking out or what, but that has been just a way to like whet my appetite when it comes to the Lego blind bag figures now that they're blind box figures. Yeah. But yes, so that was part of it. And going to Target and seeing, oh, wow, they do stock every day, right? Like they're constantly getting shipments in because that first day there was like 1 G.I. Joe figure on the shelf. And then the next day more had shown up. Like that was cool. Like actually seeing Transformers in stock was a cool thing because you don't usually see that. It was just an interesting sort of thing to experience. And then on Friday, I get there ready to walk in at 8 o'clock, and there's a lot more people there. And that's because I forgot that Taylor Swift had a new album coming out on Friday. And not only does Taylor Swift have a new album coming out on the 19th of April in 2024, she's got one doozy of a fucking special going on with Target. Are you familiar with this at all, Sejohn? Like,
is it part of the whole like Era's marketing tour that she's doing right now? Like the whole tying stuff together?
So, not really. It's all about what the Tortured Poets Department, I think is the name of the album. And
album, yeah.
She has signed up with Target. There are 4 unique album covers. And it's still the same album. Like, you go in there, and I go and I'm like, oh, Taylor Swift thing. And they have, right at the front of the store, they have a display. They have a display in electronics. And this is weird to me because Target just announced that we're getting rid of physical media by 2025. Like, that was the thing that was in the ether this past week. So we're doing it for Taylor Swift. And then, so in addition to, I see people buying all 4 albums just because of the different album artwork. And, like, I'm not a stranger to that. That's been comic collecting since pretty much the death and return of Superman. They've been trying to create collectible events, which generally serves to do the opposite of that. But that's just from my experience. Mileage may vary. But then they also have a 2 vinyl disc LP that's $40, and all of them come with 2-sided posters. Like, seeing it, first of all, I didn't realize that that's where music had gotten to. That music was now employing the methods of like comic
Well,
collecting. That was
well,
new
you
to
have to
me.
keep in mind that this is also something very unique to Taylor Swift.
Yeah,
This is something that like people like laud, laud over her. Like her marketing expertise is just as important as her musical capabilities. Like she's not as big as she is just because she's a good performer. There's tons of good performers. She's as big as she is because she's also an amazing business person.
right.
So like with that, I would say that I wouldn't say this is where music is right now. I would say this is somebody extremely savvy in the music business employing those tactics, like that knows that. Because, yeah, there are definitely bands out there that know that if they put out 3 different album artworks, they'll get different things. Or people will put out deluxe versions of albums along with their other albums, that kind of thing. The multiple album package is not necessarily new, but to have it as well structured as it is, to have the extra add-ons that you're talking about and still drawing those crowds is part of the reason why Taylor Swift stands out in
Yeah.
this particular regard.
I guess The Girl's Not Grey, thinking about the AFI album that came out in like what 2004, maybe 2003, the one that had Girls Not Grey in it. And it wasn't even like a known that there were different covers. Still the same thing, nothing special about any of them, but you could get it with the silver AFI, the red AFI, or the one that like a friend of mine was searching for, and I'm like, that's the only one I've ever seen. I didn't realize it was special. The black
Um,
on black AFI
Blink
cover.
Blink 182 did that with Take Off Your Pants and Jacket. You could get a take off, you could get a pants, or you could get a jacket, or you could get the full deluxe album.
Right.
Um, yeah,
Was that
but
three
and
EPs? I always felt like it was 3 EPs that like then made one album.
no,
No, it
Take Off Your
was.
Pants and Jacket is like maybe 13 songs long.
Oh, okay. Well, I thought that like Takeoff was 4 and that. I thought that was
Mm,
the whole thing of it.
Oh, maybe. I collected them and I don't remember them being that way. I think they're even still in this house. I think what it was I think Take Off Pants and Jacket were, if I remember correctly, the edited ones. And then if you wanted the parental guidance sticker unedited version of the album, that was the black album that had all 3 of the symbols on it. Take Off Your Pants and Jacket. So I think that was the way that it was separated out.
Yeah.
But like I do remember that each of the individual albums did have their own individual secret track, but again, the Black Album just had them all on all of the tracks. Um,
Yeah.
so that was the award I had. Yeah, there is some weird stuff there too, though. So like yeah, like we're saying, like this is not
It's not new,
necessarily
but
new, but like the concept of the multiple album artworks, the concept of the double album, all of that sort of stuff is not necessarily new. It's the organized like rollout of this in the machine is just like beautifully working in order to make the amount of money that it does. For some people, that's super gross. But I think, as you're pointing out, like this is not necessarily like new to the industry.
yeah. Like I said, I know for a fact that it's been happening, like Death and Return of Superman, all the various covers. It's not new, but it was weird to see it still employed. And then also on the heels of, oh, for all the toy collecting stuff, we just put it out because it was product, and if it's on the shelf, it's gonna sell. But for Taylor Swift, we made sure that we stuck with street date. It's that weird thing about like what street dates are, but it also says to me, it's not Target being unable to follow those things. It's just a lack of caring about the other one.
Oh
And I
yeah.
like
No,
and
they don't care because they're not going to get fucking bombarded by Swifties if they,
yeah.
if they break street date with the
Oh,
Taylor Swift stuff, they're going to be dealing with 2 camps of people. The fans of Taylor Swift that are running their stores rampant trying to find their shit, and that's going to be a nightmare for anybody working.
yeah.
And then on top of that, Taylor Swift has a very kind of somewhat unique type of fan to her fan base that would actually like really give them hell. Like straight up, probably, you'd see stuff like court, like court issues, like people bringing them to court for like, hey, I'm not. I represent all other Taylor Swift fans, and you really kind of boned us because we were waiting for this date, and like they could get into a ton of trouble. And it's not that that is not something that can't also happen with the comic book stuff. There's just not that many that, as fans as there's going to be
Yep.
with the Taylor Swift, and they're not as they're not as rabid.
Right. I mean, I also think there's the fact that, like, Taylor Swift, in terms of being litigious, if a major chain broke Street Date like that, they could also have to deal with her and her people
Hmm.
saying,
Yeah.
like, this is why this was set for this date. You broke that law, that rule, that contract that we had together. So I don't know. It's just, it was a weird thing because it was this reminder that, like, no, they're able to do this stuff. They're able to do the Stanley releases, as crazy
I,
as
I
those are. Like,
I also think there's something to be said about the idea that Taylor Swift, as an artist, puts out a product, and that product has a date. And if that date gets broken, Taylor Swift takes it personally,
yeah,
and therefore that would be kind of where like some of the more litigious stuff would come from and all that. I don't think anybody at Hasbro, I don't think anybody at NECA, I don't think anybody at like any of these places actually cares in and of themselves that their product gets out early. You know what I mean? It's not stopping you guys, not you, Devon, but like it's
I
not
get you.
stopping in their heads, it's not stopping their customers from purchasing the product, right? Like it's like you're still going out there and buying the thing, and then it gets talked about, and then it gets handed around, and then it blows up. It is more beneficial to them when Street Date gets quote unquote broken, even if it is by like 24 hours, right? There is just something to that right now, and and maybe that says something about like there's a weird balance to be struck because at some point that does start being less beneficial and more annoying, and for somebody like Taylor Swift, maybe they're just past that line. But I do think that there is something to be said about the fact that like the product created by Swift is a product. It is
Oh
a
yeah.
thing sent out there to make money in a capitalist machine. Like that. It is what it is. So this isn't a conversation about like art versus art. This is product versus product, right? She
Yes.
puts that product out there. She still has an investment personally in that product that I don't think anybody putting those toys out really truly has. Yes, there are a couple of artists along the way that probably do, but those artists are not in the same position that Swift is in the other one. They're not the ones making those decisions or frankly making that much more money on these things just because they sell well, right? Like the amount of like hype that translates to the people that actually care about these toys is not necessarily the equivalent to what's going on in that other
Oh
in that
yeah.
other
No, and I
industry.
would never try to do that. It was just like that reminder that it's a thing that's capable. I mean, because also like I've talked on this very show about like trying to get Mega Man 11 on release date. And
Hmm.
Target wasn't going to sell it beforehand, but then going in there on the day it's out, they're like, oh, I don't know if we have that. Like, when does it come out? It comes out today. Oh, we might not be receiving it until today. And then, like, one person's like, no, we have them in the back. Like, we've had them in the back for a week. They're supposed to be out. Sorry for the issue. Like, it's been strange to me. And then there is that other, like, Nintendo breaking street dates. That's why Yuzu and emulation of Switch games became such a big deal
Hmm.
because somebody would get a game 2 weeks before the street date, which is generally when it's shipped out to make sure that they have them on hand so that when people go on the day that it comes out, they can get the product, right? Because they're not going to blame Target for not having the product out. They're going to be like, oh, why didn't Nintendo get this out to the stores so that I can buy it on release date? They just want me to do it digital. Like, that's the way that it goes. NECA, I believe, like, I haven't worked retail in a long time, so maybe you can fill me in here. Maybe somebody listening at home can fill this in here. But I don't think NECA is one of those companies that sells product to Target and then Target displays. I think they're like, it's almost like consignment where they're like, yeah, we have this section of the store that we will pay for. We will have our own rep come out to make sure that it is, maintained properly and that new product is put out. We'll inventory it on our own because they're like more invested in it.
Well,
Like,
yeah, I mean, famously, what more people may be more aware of with this happening with is stuff like the potato chip aisle in your grocery store, where like that's one of the few aisles that the grocery store itself doesn't stock or clean or do any of that. It is up to the reps of those companies to come in and make sure that that stuff is done, and that's for various reasons. But but that's what you're talking about, right? Is it rather than it coming in on a Target truck and a Target employee putting it on a shelf, a guy from NECA like shows up with his own NECA truck and wheels his product off and makes sure it gets put in the right place.
Yeah, and make sure that it's fronted and that all the things are right. And like
I don't know. I've never worked in a position to work with toys that much. The few places I've worked that have had toy sections we were responsible for, but they were never this level of toy either.
But I do know, like, that's why NECA has its own special section, like, with the physical media. It's not in the toy section usually, though I have seen some that have a NECA part in the toy aisle. I think it's very strange because, like, in terms of clearancing it out, you don't generally see the NECA stuff clearanced out because they're the ones who set the prices. So even though, like, there are items that have been on the shelf for years, they're not going to clearance them out because there's no money for them. Like, eventually, someone will pay this $60 for this 2-pack of Ninja Turtle characters. We know that. This is how we run the business. So, for NECA, if that's the thing, if they're on, like, a sort of consignment, we have a rep going out, it doesn't matter to them if it coincides with Target's big event happening, like, for 5 weeks, right? They just want the money as soon as they can get the money.
Yeah.
So
that's what I mean is there's more people in this kind of part of the equation that the final product and its relationship to the user is not really nearly as important as, like, it is only important to the point of which how much money can we make off of it, not like, hey, they're expecting this on a certain date, hey, they're expecting this in a certain condition, hey, they're expecting like that. None of that stuff really kind of matters, and that sucks when it comes to this sort of stuff, because as we've pointed out before, like, they are dealing in nostalgia and like dealing on, their entire job is to pull on heartstrings, and to recognize that there's a good handful of people in that equation that like don't care about that is like really sucks the fun out of it sometimes.
Oh yeah, that's
to say the least.
Yeah, I mean, because it's one of those situations where one person finds a product, they put up on Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, I found this at my local Target, and then everybody like kind of goes and like, maybe I can have it at my local Target. I remember the one that I will always remember is Transformers Animated. So back in 2008, when those toys like came out 3 months before the street date that was supposedly there, like the show wasn't even out yet and they were found on things. So I drove to Manchester, Connecticut. I've talked about Manchester, Connecticut before, and I found all of the figures, and it felt kind of cool, but also like kind of, then what's the point of having those street dates from Hasbro? Like I'm glad to have these things, but now there's nothing to look forward to. And also, excuse me, we're living in a time where like Hasbro has its own direct sales website, but that direct sales from Hasbro, sometimes you're not going to get products for like 2 or 3 months before you could find them in store. So where is Hasbro getting that product from? Like they were so over the moon because they listed like an Ant-Man Wasp 2-pack, and it shipped the same day that they announced it. And everybody's like, this is what toys should be. And everybody's like, no, we got to pre-order so we know money. Like, no, you should say this is available, go buy it, and then I get it from you. Why wouldn't you do
like,
this?
The pre-sale made-to-order aspect in terms of like finances in an industry that has often had really bad low times when it comes to financial stability. Like, I understand where that kind of concept comes from, but then it leads to, we've talked about this with a lot of the times with like limited run, right? Where like, you don't know if the product's ever even going to come to you at some point, and if it does, it might be 2 years from now, and like it's not a pleasant position to be in as a customer. Like, as much as like I understand from the manufacturing side where the idea comes from, again, at the end of the day, like the lack of care of what's happening on the customer end, like, is just, when that becomes apparent, that is when it becomes really kind of shameful and like really no fun to be part of the hobby anymore.
And they're in a weird tailspin anyway. I know I've talked about this a lot, but it was like, this is my extent of Haulathon. I'm not going to be going to Target every morning hoping to find something. That Friday, that first drop, it was the four turtles in their punk disguises from season 3, episode 32, Yasagi Yojimbo, and then with their crazy London punk haircuts from Shredder's New Sword, which is a season 8 episode. I don't know that one exactly. It's not Usagi, so I'm sorry about that. I placed the order. A week later, it came. No muss, no fuss. Like, that's how I'm going to handle the rest of it. I can't be going hoping to find something and, like, wasting the time to go there. But also, like, the interesting thing about it, like, it gave me a thing to do and I enjoyed that part of it. But also, I'm much more, like, careful about what I purchase, because if I can find it in person, then, like, oh yeah, I want this. But online, like, I'll just purchase everything. And so it's kind of nice to go back to brick and mortar. I don't know, CJ. It's been a weird week for me. This whole, like, going to stores looking for product again. And it, like, made me, when I found something, I felt good about finding that something. Like,
well, there is also something else to the collecting lifestyle. And I think we've touched on this before, but it's this idea that part of the experience of collecting, for me, is that act of finding that thing right on the shelf, whether it's me going to look for something and me spending that time looking for it, or that rare occasion where I come upon something just randomly in the wild and I'm like, oh my God, I need this thing. Like that doesn't happen as much, but like it does, like, especially if we're talking about like, you know, Criterion versions of movies that I happen to find at like the Goodwill or something like that. Like those are awesome moments as well. But that's just it, right? It's like, for me, as important as it is to have that product as a collector, you know, because I collect all sorts of various things. I've got comic books that I've collected over the years. We've talked about various toys that I've ended up finding myself with and things like that. But I've never gotten into like huge rabbit hole collecting, because at some point it's no longer about that experience and it becomes about that idea of like, well, I'm just going to be able to get at this online and I need to have it, so I'm just going to order all of it now. But then it shows up and it's like, okay, I wanted a thing, I clicked on a button, I had that thing, and it's here. Like, that's awesome. And this is so third world problem complaining now.
oh
But
yeah,
like that is all collecting ever really is. But that idea that like part of the hobby for me is that part of the hunt, right? You know, and like to lose that kind of again takes kind of the fun out of it. And like it is when the people creating that product and playing on that nostalgia are aware that the experience is part of the deal, that is when I really like to buy into that sort of stuff. You know, whether it's that they're making a movie in a certain style, but they understand that like they can't just rush to the good parts everybody remembers. You have to go through and actually like make the movie, you know?
yeah.
We talk about that with like good satire is often also just good movies as well, right? But like there's also something to be said about like people that are going back and writing books for characters that maybe they didn't originate, or you know, comic books, you know, restarting like long dead like hero arcs that like they just want to try and bring a character back. Like whenever a company is dipping back into the well of memory in order to try and sell a product to you, they have a couple of choices to make. One of the roads they can go down is that they can really take the time to figure out what people truly liked about a thing, and often they'll learn it's not just this one image that gets memed, it's not just this one line that gets quoted all the time, it's not just this one poster that was up on every college kid's door. Like there was a movie behind all of that, there was a TV show behind all of that had shit that happened in it that we need to get to the bottom of. Like that's when that stuff works for me. And then there's the time where you just have that marketing guy in the room that's just like Mr. Business, that's just like, every kid has this poster on his wall, let's make a movie that's basically just that poster. And you're just like, you've missed kind of the whole point of this whole endeavor, man. And like, and so it is when they, you know, it's always going to be this like capitalist product thing that they're trying to pitch you, but there's still some nuance to be said that like some of this stuff can still be fun to collect because the guys behind it do care about producing it. And just the more and more you talk about the Target NECA stuff, the less and less I think they're on that side of the equation.
Yeah, I mean, it's the weirdest thing is that the only place to get stuff based on the 1987 cartoon is at Target. That's the only place. NECA has an exclusivity deal for those characters at Target. And that has been strange. And it is getting to the point now where, like, how many times can you do the Four Brothers? So they're doing more and more obscure characters. And now we're also seeing that in something like the Mirage line. like Kirby is getting a figure this year. And that's awesome. I want that. I love the Donatello micro series. I love the like he draws stuff, it comes to life. He's based on Jack Kirby. Like that's fun things. But for some people they're like, "Oh, why would I want that figure?" And I get that. Cuz it's not a Ninja Turtle, it's not the Shredder. It's not something that you know. It's a one-off character from one issue that like I don't know. Like I told somebody the stuff that I'm looking for in this and they're like, "That all seems kind of lame in terms of like Ninja Turtles collecting." And I'm like, yeah, I mean, you're not wrong, but that's where they're at now. They've done all the big ticket characters.
We had this conversation a few years ago when I came across a Funko Pop line in Walmart, and all that was left on the shelf, it was right after Thor Ragnarok, and
Mm-hmm.
all that was left on the shelf was this character that said it was from Thor Ragnarok. I had seen that movie twice at this point, and I could not for the life of me tell you who this character was. But there was dozens of them on the shelf compared to like the compared to the couple of other characters that had been like one or two left, right? And I texted you and I was like, yes, everybody's favorite character, and you were like, you don't know who that is? That's the bug at the chalkboard. And I'm just like, the fuck does that even mean to me?
Yeah, no, I know it's Meek. I love
Yeah,
Meek.
and it's like this character that apparently showed up for one moment to be a reference joke to the other Thor movie.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, it
But
was Love and
apparently
Thunder. It was Thor: Love and Thunder.
apparently
Yeah.
they felt that they really needed to have that character in that line of Funko Pops.
I don't know. I mean, there was like the mayor's assistant. I don't know. It's weird. It is weird. Like when it gets to that point where like we've done all the popular stuff. Let's go for these. Like buying the Ninja Turtles in their punk disguises. That's not something that like I thought I would ever need. But I like they look really good, and I don't have the four brothers in the Toon style, so it's a little different in that. And it's not like it's any more expensive to get the 4-pack. It would be like if I bought the four brothers separate. Like there
Yeah.
wasn't a premium because you get them all in one spot. Now, would it be nice if I could maybe save money?
Save. I was gonna say
Like,
that you didn't even save a little though.
no. Like that used to be it. Like it used to be kind of buy three get one free, but now the prices it's just the same. So
Yeah, or even justifying it like, hey, these are each $20 instead of 25 if you do the math or
yeah,
whatever.
and you get
If you want to get a little,
accessories. Like yeah,
yeah, if you want to get a little like freakonomics on it, like where a lot of this stuff is also really coming from is straight up Five Nights at Freddy's. There is this kind of running thing in the merchandising where they will put out the same 4 to 5 characters over and over and over again, but they'll put out the Halloween version, they'll put out the circus version, they'll put out the ice cream version, they'll put out the like the one that's like combined with Avengers. Like they'll put out the same characters over and over and over again, and that shit just keeps on selling over and over and over. They created an entire phone game based around this entire idea. The Five Nights at Freddy's AR phone game that ran for a few years. It actually only just closed down a couple of weeks ago. Like the whole concept of that game, special delivery was its subtitle, is that they would deliver different versions of the various creatures to your house that you would then like chase around your house in like the AR, right? And they use that as a medium to introduce, this one's Chocolate Freddy, this one is Cyber Freddy, this one is, Punk Freddy, like all of this shit that you're talking about with the turtles. And it's because like the toy and merchandising that came out of that game and the ways in which they have been able to just do exactly that and make fucking bank. But one of the things to kind of tie it back to the conversation I was having before about how the person behind it having a little bit more care in what they're doing, one of the crazier things about all that stuff is that there is consistently stuff in those drops of those characters, whether it's t-shirts that have come out, books or comic books, coloring books that have come out. There's constantly stuff in those reiterations and stuff that is adding more and more quote unquote lore to the whole thing, right? So like in a weird way they're like using the oversaturation in the marketplace as a way to get more story out, which then in turn brings more people in to buy that stuff, right? So there's just this whole like kind of like cycle. It could be a pretty vicious cycle if depending on like who's being targeted, the fact that all this shit is all targeted at kids, we got to remember, right? But like the fact of it is that like by putting all of this stuff out, it avoids becoming bloat by being new material every time. Whereas what's happening with like the Turtles, for instance, they have to there's a very limited well they're going back to. They're going to run out of stuff eventually, right? And they're not using it to world build. They're using it to mine whatever little bit is there.
Yeah, I mean, because going back, as much as Five Nights at Freddy's, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were kind of like the original line that did exactly what you're talking about. Because when Playmates got the license to do those toys, that was when they're like, well, we're not going to do them all the same color skin, right? We don't want parents to look at these and think, you already have that one at home. Right? The blue bandana guy's going to have a darker green. The purple bandana, he's going to have brownish skin. Like, there was a different way to differentiate the turtles so that, like, parents wouldn't be like, you already have that. I'm not buying you the same thing.
Well, and also so that kids would have the argument, I need to, this one is different, right?
Yeah.
Like,
exactly.
Yeah.
So that's part of what happens with TMNT. And then what Playmates like lives on is that every few months they're going to release the 4 guys in a different like theme. Like the first one was the fact that they released them and like Raphael was a spaceman, Leonardo is a samurai, Mikey's a surfer, and Donatello is in the like trench coat disguise. Like, that's the first one. But then, like, there's the Wild West Turtles, where it's crazy cavalry Leo and Mexican stereotype Michelangelo. Because that's what he looks like. I think he's Bandito Mikey is his actual name. And then they keep doing that. The military one, where each of them is in a different branch of the military. And, like, that's how they did it. And NECA is not doing that. Like, they've released the Style Guide Turtles, which is based as how they looked originally in the Playmates Style Guide before all the changes were made to make them unique. So it really is just like this bright green color that ended up going away. Then they did the Brothers in Disguise, and now they got like the Pizza Club ones that are coming out. That is the regular Turtles, but each of them in a separate box with a bunch of different accessories. Like, they're doing that, but they're not leaning into the.
Did we talk about this? The Pizza Club, the because they're the FHS tapes, right?
They're like the FHS tapes, yes.
Yeah. So were those in continuity with the TV show, or those are separate from the TV show?
Those shows are just episodes from the TV show.
They are just episodes from the TV show. They weren't like some special thing produced for like the Burger King Kids Club or whatever it was.
No, I mean, they were specially produced to be able to only get them at Burger King. But, I mean, this is before, like, you could buy the full DVD of a season of shows. Like,
and they probably had, like, a Burger King commercial at the beginning of them and all that sort of shit. Yeah.
Like the pizza commercial before the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the movie VHS. So it's like that whole thing of how they're selling it now. Like, NECA should always have the 4 brothers available. And it's kind of weird that they don't do that. Like, one would hope that with this, like, Pizza Club release, they just try to keep those on the shelves all the time. And then people can join the line whenever. But if they're not producing like a new set of the brothers every time they're releasing new toys, like there's no draw to go and get those figures. Does that like it's so that's the other thing? Because they would like the people. Here's the thing about Ninja Turtles collectors. And this is the reason why like I've stepped back a lot. And I hate that this sort of like haulathon thing, trying to get a set of the Toon Turtles, is sort of pulling me back in like Al Pacino in The Third Godfather, which we'll cover eventually, like 20 years from now. But yeah, so like it pulls you back in, but that's because like Ninja Turtles collectors are the most completionist collectors that I have ever met, like in the world. So if NECA was doing like Star Trek Turtles, the people would go out and buy those. Everybody was like, I'm not going to buy the Punk Turtles. And then I see on like the Technodrome message boards, I ended up breaking down and buying the Punk Turtles. Because it's like, yeah, because like it's a definite addiction that you have to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles collectibles. So then like when it seems like Target's trying to leverage that to get people to come to their store every Friday, and then they just don't do that. They just blow it off. Like, that just seems so strange to me. And there's also going to be, like, it's impossible to find this stuff in stores right now. But, like, when they did the Mirage set of the 4 turtles, which I think was for a Haulathon last year, it was the Jim Lawson designs based on 19, 20, and 21 of the original volume of Mirage Comics. Like, they were impossible to find during Haulathon, and then like 4 months later, like there was like tens of them in every Target I went to. And it's like, so what, you had it, but I like supply chain. What happened? Where like now you guys are just throwing these on the shelves. I don't know. It was just a weird thing to go back to it, and I feel like
I mean,
yeah.
I was gonna say, I think Target, not to like try and like defend a major corporation, they don't need my help in that kind of shit, but like I do think that there's probably a lot going on behind the scenes right now where this is not where their focus is. Especially this time of the year, man. I don't envy whoever the fuck has to figure out what the hell they're gonna do with Pride this year. Like, it's gonna be a fucking mess. And like, and so with all that other shit going on, clearly, as you kind of started this whole thing talking about this huge brand deal that they had with Taylor Swift, which was going to be huge, even if she wasn't in the middle of her whole Eras tour, like monolith, like marketing campaign that she's got going on right now. Like, there's just so much going on in like in those like places that this is probably bottom of the barrel for them.
Oh yeah, well, it's strange because last year they ended up getting screwed royally. They ordered, stuff wouldn't sell, they'd end up clearancing it out, and then people realized how quickly clearance was happening at Target because they just didn't have the shelf space for stuff that was going to be coming in, that like nobody paid full price at Target for anything. And anything that didn't sell ended up going to like Ollie's or Ross Dress for Less, and you'd find it for like $5. It became a real, the collectibles game is now wait until the deal. But because of that, their orders for 2024 have been drastically reduced. Where before they might buy like 4 boxes of new inventory, they're only buying 1.
Right.
And you can tell because you go into the store and you don't see any toys from Hasbro on the shelf. That's weird, especially in this area of the country. I don't know. And you're not wrong. Like, toys and collectibles are probably a low priority item, even though in terms of shrink, like, they're probably high since there's not a huge amount of money to be made on them over the MSRP, right? Like that $35 Ninja Turtles toy, you're probably only making like $5 on it.
It costs you $30 to get it in the store.
Yeah. So
it's I don't know, man. Like we talked about really early on in the days of this show about how big box stores like Walmart and Target had really kind of muscled in on the toy collecting like world because they saw the potential in it. But it was never going to work in their their shelf space, premium based, marketing style. Like their version of store is not the same as these mom and pop stores that we're seeing these kinds of like, big moments with toys coming out, but they didn't do the math right. They assumed that they could pull off those same kind of events, those same kind of numbers that little collector places were getting for this shit. They thought they could get in on this, and we're watching it fail, but they've got enough money behind them to kind of keep this like dead horse running for a while. And so I don't know how long it's going to be until they finally give up the ghost on this shit and finally let this kind of stuff go back to these smaller stores where it should have stayed. We've always talked about, like, in our culture, we have always talked about the big box store killing the smaller mom and pop stores. We've never really talked about what it would look like once the big box stores started to fail as well.
Yeah,
and we're going to start kind of having to come to terms with that.
That is where we're at, because like the last time that I went for an actual street date for toys, Toys R Us still existed. And that was like, you can go now and buy all the May 4th, 2016, all the new Star Wars toys are going to be available. They did one for the Age of Extinction freaking Transformers movie, the first Mark Wahlberg movie. Had like, this is the date. If you come to Toys R Us, all of the toys will be available. Like, you're not wrong. It doesn't even have to be like a mom and pop. Just a specialty store where this is all we do, right? like, because Toys R Us could do that stuff.
Toys.
Yeah. I mean, KB Toys. There's a very special episode sometime. That whole 3 for $10 racket they had going, beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. But again, it's something for another time. And I've talked about this a lot. So I'm going to transition into, do you know what yesterday was, Sejohn?
Yes, Devon. Are we doing this? What are we doing?
Well, no, it was
Yesterday
record
was
store
the
day.
weed day, Devon. What are we?
It was also record store day.
Oh, yeah. Well, lo and behold. Yes.
That's why if you're in the Say Report Discord, I sent all those images from outside of the Newbury Comics of people in line. That says 7:55 a.m. Newbury Comics does not open until 11 a.m. And they were not opening early. All of those people were lined up for record store day at Newbury Comics. And the only reason, first of all, so I had those people getting Taylor Swift stuff, seeing that whole thing. And I can report, not happily, just kind of like reporting as non-biased here, there was no reason to go to those Targets super early to make sure you got those records. They were still, all 4 covers were still available yesterday and today when I went to finish up my Target at 8 a.m. little experiment. So it wasn't one of those things where we only have a couple of copies. No. They planned to keep selling these. But yesterday morning, as I was going to go out to Target, Dale announces that she has some things she wants to get for record store day. And I'm like, oh, Dale, when did you decide this? She's like, oh, I just found out about it last night. And I had to say to her, no. Like, this is a thing that people plan for. This is the only day record collectors get, and they take advantage of it. And she's like, "Nah, you're full of shit. You don't know anything about it." And that's why I went to Newbury Comics to get that picture to show her, no, this is a bigger deal than like on a whim I'm gonna decide to take part in it. And I honestly, like,
it's your day. I mean, it's like free comic book day, like you know, where you might have to go to a few different comic shops in order to make sure you get everything you want. You have to plan for it. It has to become you can totally jump in. I will say I would have just brought her, but because like what's the
well, no,
the worst that happens is you show up and she goes now. But
it has a happy ending, this story, because we found a little record shop in Connecticut, like New London area. And we went there an hour after they opened, and she was able to go in, and she found 3 of the 5 albums that she wanted. One of them was the soundtrack of a documentary that she worked on that was like a special record store release of it. So that, like, I get that one. Like, I'm like, as long as she gets that, I'll be pretty happy. But you can't be like, yeah, I figure we'll roll up right at 11, walk into the Newbury Comics, and I'll get this album that I want. Because there are people who are lined up at 8 o'clock, and that line is going to take some time to go through. You have to go to, like, I'm happy that we went to a little independent one, and that I'm sure they had a line there earlier in the day, but by the time we got there, she walked right in and out and with everything she wanted, except for the 2 that she didn't get, which were a Jenny Lewis record and Even More Dazed and Confused on vinyl. So, because it was the weed day. Sorry to set you up like that. But I did want to give you some context for, like, in terms of collectible events, they're still working, right? Look at freaking Record Store Day. Look at that line all the way down.
Yeah. It's wild, man. I'm happy to see like people doing that kind of shit. There's a couple of good ones out here, a couple of good record stores out here that yesterday was a bit of a crazy day for a lot of reasons, not least of which it being a celebratory day.
Yes, a celebratory day.
Yeah, but also I spent a bunch of time. I thought you were going to use our talk of Ninja Turtles and all of that and all of this to roll into some G.I. Joe, because that's what I spent some of my day doing yesterday.
Oh, yeah, no, definitely. I was going to mention Record Store Day just because I had sent the photos and everything like that. So collecting is still out there. It's still there. And then I was going to say, and after that, I was able to find one of the new Duke G.I. Joe figures in the store. And speaking of G.I. Joe, the beat-em-up Wrath of Cobra dropped its demo. And Sejohn, I'm going to let you go
first. Why the question mark?
Yeah. Oh, okay. What's your
Why? What?
question mark?
No, no. Why did you put a question mark at the end of Wrath of Cobra?
Is that the name of it? Is G.I.
Yes,
Joe
I
Wrath of
believe that
Cobra?
is the name of it.
I wasn't sure of the
Yes.
title. I think it's because I always read it as Wraith of Cobra, which is stupid, but that's what my mind does every time.
um. Yeah. I mean, I don't know what you want me to say about it. We have played a good number of nostalgia driven games lately, right? Like games that are
Yes.
trying to like so the new Contra had come out, and we had some conversations about that. Then you and I played the not Contra Cyber
Super
Bros. What's
Cyborg.
Yeah, Super Cyber. Yeah. We've done that one together and we had a blast doing that. And like, I'm dying to like get back to that with you, especially because like I see that you've been playing it a little bit more. So you probably have a little bit better of an idea of what we were getting into, which was part of like the
Yeah.
fun that night, but also
Yeah.
kind of the insanity.
Yeah, no, I don't know,
um,
Sejohn. We couldn't get through the third level after trying for like an hour and a half. I don't know if we're gonna be able to get through 4 or 5. Like if we're ever
mhm.
able to get through the third level and the sixth level, I almost broke my laptop because the sixth level is a bastard. I'd like that.
So we
Yeah.
so this is a kind of an ongoing trend right now. I don't know if it's just like what do you call it, confirmation bias because you and I have just kind of started doing this, or if there is a little bit of a move right now to put out these kinds of these older run and gun beat 'em up games that are kind of in this like over the top machismo format, right? Um, but because of the fact that it's not like the first one that we played, I think it's got a lot of shit working against it. G.I. Joe Wrath of Cobra is kind of walking in the door right now as a like, even on the heels of something as long ago, quote unquote, as Ninja Turtles Rise of the Shredder, right?
Revenge of the Shredder.
Like
Yeah.
Revenge of the Shredder, thank you.
Or
But like
Shredder's Revenge is I think actually the title. But yes, it's about Shredder. He's getting revenge. The fight against
he's
Chrome
rising
Dome
up.
is fantastic. I love it.
But right, like even this far removed from that game, like I really do think like it's kind of walking in, it's got to be very delicate. It's got to and it so I'm having a hard time right now wanting to play GI Joe Wrath of Cobra when I have the option to go play so many other things. It is not a game that grabbed me in my playing of it. There's not as much going on in the controls as I feel like I want there to be in these kinds of games. There's not as much like nostalgia for me wrapped up in like the locations and like the stuff going on, like it just it looks a little bland. Like it looks well made. It's not like I think it's poorly like designed. The pixel art in it and stuff like that is really fun, really well done, but there's not much going on in terms of like the backgrounds and stuff. The music isn't grabbing me. Like there isn't any aspect of it that I think it's just knocking out of the park, and because of that it's not one that I really enjoyed my time with because I spent the whole time wishing I was just playing some of these other games we mentioned.
Okay, good. So the reason why I wanted you to go first is because of everything that you just said. I am somebody who plays beat 'em up games. It like in terms of genres that I'm always going to throw my hat into the ring for, the beat 'em up is one of those. And playing this game, I was all at once immediately disappointed by it. And I guess I didn't want to like that to just be the baseline where we started from. So that's why I wanted you to start, because if I'm disappointed, I have 35 years of beat 'em ups that every beat 'em up I play is being compared to, right? Which is why when something like Shredder's Revenge comes along and it blows me away, that is so meaningful. Like Streets of Rage 4. Streets of Rage 4 coming out and it being a game that like I could not put down despite not being the biggest Streets of Rage fan, but seeing how they like modified it and made it better. River City Girls, the first one, and then how far they fell with River City Girls 2. The Double Dragon game,
Double Dragon Neon?
Not Neon. I love Neon. The one that just came out last year, Gaiden, Double Dragon Gaiden. They just added DLC for it, and that DLC included online co-op and a bunch of other like iconic Double Dragon characters to be unlocked. And now that game feels more complete. When it first came out, it's like, this does not feel like a complete experience. And I played it, I beat it, and I never touched it again. And I'm very surprised, happily surprised, that the new things that they've added has brought me back into that game. G.I. Joe Wrath of Cobra, I feel like there's no weight behind anything I'm doing in the game. Like, hitting things does not feel satisfying. Almost everything can be stun locked to death, which, like, honestly, before you get to the demo phase, hopefully you're going to identify that. I mean, like, it's sort of cute in Streets of Rage 2 that you could do it, but, like, when Streets of Rage 4, they, like, specifically had the enemies with attacks that punished you if you tried to do that, that was cool. Like, that felt like...
can I just ask really quick, just so that we're on the same page, what difficulty you played on?
I did it on normal. I beat both levels on normal as both characters. And then this morning, I did a run through of the Cobra battleship, the one in the sky, on Impossible. And honestly, the hardest part of that level is the fight against Baroness. And it's just because, like, that she seems poorly coded to be a fighting game boss in a lot of ways. Like, again, it's a demo. It's a work in progress. And I understand that. But if you're demoing the game, like, this is not the state you want it to be in. Like,
yeah, there was some weirdness with, like, her positioning, especially when she did the bounce around. She does, like, the 4 pinball move off the walls, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, and, like, in that move and stuff like that. Yeah, I don't know. There was just some stuff that felt, floaty. And like you said, it didn't feel like hits were landing. It didn't feel like much was going on in that regard. Like, and then, I don't know. There was just some other stuff, like, I had a gun in my hand that was fully charged, and I was ready to go into Baroness with it. And I was all excited because I was about to walk into a boss battle and have that weapon on me. But I also needed the health that was right there. And realizing that I needed to blow the ammo on the gun in order to pick up the health was a bit of a bummer. Like, they were to the same button.
Yeah, and I think there's a way to drop the gun, but, like, I haven't done that experimentation. Because there's a way to, like, drop the gun and then pick it up and have the ammo that was there before.
What? That's wild.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, yeah, stuff like that just didn't, like, quite click for me. And so even if there are ways, I guess, around it, I didn't find them as I was playing it.
Right.
And, like, so there's just there was just something about it where every step of the way I kept thinking, this is good enough. Like, I'm not, it's not impossible for me to play. And I was on normal, by the way.
That's understandable. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I tried it on easy afterwards, and it felt pretty much the same. I don't know what easy is doing that normal wasn't doing, but again, I didn't play with it enough to really kind of get into these nuances. So I can specifically say,
from normal to impossible, regular mooks had more health. Where every time I would kill, like, a Cobra soldier, they would, like, once they knocked down, they died, and it was, like, Cobra officers who would get knocked up and could stand back up, and then the Crimson Guard and their whole thing. Like, that was an interesting thing, but on impossible mode, like, I was knocking down the regular Cobra soldiers, and they would get back up afterwards. So they had, like, almost double the health pool to do that. Okay. So, I don't know.
Yeah, the fact that there's not, like, more that stands out in that regard, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it just made me want to just play other stuff. Honestly, it kept making me really want to go back and play, like, it's been a while since I've touched Scott Pilgrim, right? Which was kind of blew up a couple of years ago. There was, what was the other one that had come out recently that had done really well? Maybe it was Double Dragon. Maybe it was Double Dragon Gaiden that I'm thinking of. But there was another couple of them that was, no, it was Fists of Fury or Kick Fury. What was that really weird Netflix, like, 30-minute, like, spoof movie that had come out like 6 years ago, like Kick Puncher or something like that? And they did a
Kung Fury. Is that the name of it?
Kung Fury. That's it exactly. Thank you. Jeez, diving deep on that one. But they came out with, like, a little beat 'em up style game that was like $1 on, like, PlayStation back then, right? Well, apparently they fully fleshed that out recently, like within, like, last year or two, And so for like $25 now, there's like a whole game around it that I was like, oh, I gotta check that fucking thing out just for the story. Like I've heard nothing about it even being made or released. I didn't know where it came from, but there it was. And I was like, I was on the PlayStation Store. So like but that's all I was doing was spending all of my time playing this game, thinking of all these other games I'd rather be playing.
Yeah. For me, it was like, it just feels like, oh, we saw how good Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge did. Let's get in on that. Let's try to get our ducats from that beat 'em up. I mean, they even
How
got
do you feel about the opening movie, by the way?
It won't play for me without like having issues. I've
Okay,
tried it on multiple things. It like gets scratchy or the audio goes off, and I'm just like,
weird.
I wish that I could watch you. I don't know why I can't. I will.
I don't think you're missing much, and that's all I'll say about that since you
Okay.
haven't seen it.
No, I mean that's, but it's a thing where like it says like T Lopes is doing the music, and so all these things that were like a big deal with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, it's like they went and they got that, and then the game itself just does not feel like fun. I don't know. I want it to be.
Maybe my hope is that when it releases, it's got a couple more characters right off the bat, and it's got a little bit more going on location wise. Like maybe because part of it is that the demo tells you you're going to play story mode, which is fine, but then you go in and you can pick whatever level and there's no narration or anything. So why am I on a story mode? Just call it arcade mode, because that was the part of it for me, is I was like, this also feels very thin because you told me I was kind of coming into this very particular type of experience that I'm not experiencing right now. I have no connection to what's happening on screen in terms of story. I don't really know where I'm trying to get to. I got to Baroness and I was like, oh, this is awesome. And then like she's not even the final boss. Like it got weird. It just
What about when you fight the Hiss tank? Like G.I. Joe just punched a tank to death. I didn't feel like, and when you kill the enemies, they erupt into like screwdrivers and wrenches. Are they robots?
Are they supposed to be robots?
Like there are robots in G.I. Joe. It's the BATs. Like, why are we not fighting those if you want it to be robots and not humans?
We have like some weird European version, like how in Germany or something like that, they always have to make sure they're replaced with robots instead of other people.
I mean, like going back to Ninja Turtles, that's why they fought the foot robots, the purple clad guys, was because they can't be humans. Right. We can't be doing that for children. So it's this weird thing that happens. Like we have all these examples of it, and I'm like, I don't know why this is happening for G.I. Joe though. Like this is weird. And you pick up the discs, and I don't know what those are for. Like is that going to be used for something or
whatever? But my health was not going up when I was picking up the red ones, and my blue special bar was not going up when I was picking up the blue ones.
The special, I think, is an issue too. Because, like, you use it screen wipes, but it doesn't hit everything on screen. And you have the taunt, which is fun.
So I played mostly as Scarlet.
Okay.
And I had a real issue not knowing what the fuck her right bumper move was. Not the special, but the bumper move, where, like, she would just aim at the ground and shoot a bunch of arrows into the ground.
That's a taunt. It's, so using Shredder's Revenge, it's April being like, any questions, where she holds out her microphone and it would fill up the ultimate, right? Michelangelo.
But is that what's happened? But is it? But I couldn't figure out if it was filling the ultimate in this. Is it?
Oh, it doesn't. It doesn't work for that. It's just there to taunt. It doesn't make you stronger if you can get the full thing through. So, like, it seems like it's
she shoots a gun full of fucking sharp ass barbs. I thought it was a move. I was trying to hit people with it. I kept trying to jump and do it, or like I couldn't figure out what the hell it was.
No, she puts on a blindfold and shoots a smiley face into the ground, and that's fun. You know what Duke's is? Duke just does a salute, and I'm just like, what is this? It doesn't have any use yet. I tried it every other way to see if it might have some sort of usage. Couldn't find it. The nice thing is, so people have been losing their mind over the game, which is, again, like that is the thing that I want to try to focus on, is why we don't seem to care anymore if the nostalgia we're being fed is any good. We're just happy to get the nostalgia. I'll go back to X-Men 97, right? That fifth episode, incredible. Probably one of the greatest things that Marvel has had their name attached to like since maybe 2018, which I know that wasn't that long ago, but like think of some of the things we've gotten since like Infinity War and Endgame. Like it's not hit that same height, and for obvious reasons. Like that X-Men 97 fifth episode felt like it was on the level of everybody coming out of the portals in Endgame. Spoilers for a 5-year-old movie. And then the 6th episode, it was right back to the bullshit. And it was like disappointing. Because now we've seen how good you are. But people still losing their minds. And I'm like, but just because it's nostalgia doesn't mean we need to love it like blindly. And this same game, right? Download it, try it. And I'm like, there are some issues, but it's a demo. But everybody like, oh, it's so good. I'm so excited for the final release. And then I found some of those dissenting voices. One of them is a beta tester who's like, you know, these issues that you're bringing up, like what we said, where like there's no weight behind things or things seem a little floaty. We've brought that to the attention of the developers and they do not seem to care. And that's a weird thing to read from a beta tester of the game. And then other people who are doing the demo, like, as much as I love beat 'em ups, like these are the people who have multiple world records in one CC clears or whatever, being like, this is the type of stuff that you release demos for in order to find these problems. Hopefully they identify and they fix them. He announced that he got hired to be QA because they thought the game was going fine. Until people started playing it and were saying things that even you, Sejohn, who like are casual in this type of genre, noticed and were like, what the hell? Like, and that's not anything against you. It's just that like I probably play a beat 'em up every single day of my life, right? So I'm gonna notice little stupid things and try to move from there.
You know, noticeably, like, this is not a product that's like out in full yet. So
yes,
I think
it is
like,
a demo.
it's a little hard for me to like compare it to something like X-Men 97 when like it's apples to oranges at this point until we know otherwise, you know. But like the other thing that I will say is like there is something to be said about a large part of nostalgia being personal, right? Like there is an aspect to nostalgia that you are never going to truly be able to capture what another person's experience is like in that, right? So like things like people playing this and enjoying it, and if this is like bringing them to a good place and they want to enjoy it, like I hesitate to just say that just because we don't like it means it's not good, I guess is where
right. And I don't want
right? Like because like there's a difference between this isn't working for me and this isn't working, period. And I would say that for me, a lot of the stuff that I mentioned are all reasons why I don't want to play this game. I'd rather play another one. But as I said, I don't think that was inherently broken in the game itself. And so if somebody else is able to play it and not have those same feelings, then good for them, right? It's not like we're saying like with you in the opening movie, the fact that it just won't play for you is like kind of a super bummer because like in a weird way it set me up to kind of understand exactly what level we were really at, right? Going into it. When I was watching that opening movie and I was just like, oh, there is just enough cutesy stuff going on here that somebody did their homework, but they're not doing anything with what they found in their research. They don't it's not making a commentary in any way. It's not trying to update or be cool or like there was something about watching it where I was just like, this feels like a report versus like reading somebody's like thesis paper, right? Like somebody breaking down, oh, here's all the stuff about G.I. Joe that we loved and here's why we loved it. That's not what's happening. It's a lot of here's all the stuff we love about G.I. Joe with none of the why we love it behind any of it. And that I feel is like a little bit more of an inherently kind of like critically broken part of this that maybe should be examined. But maybe once the whole game comes out, I'll be proven wrong on that.
Right, and I will admit it is a demo. The reason why I'm like I'd like you to play it so we can talk about it on the show is because I said, you know, like there's like it's clearly a demo. There's some stuff that needs to be fixed with it, and the response from other people was like other people are enjoying it, and I'm like, so that means that like my opinion just becomes moot then? the fact that I found some issues with it, like, oh, but other people like it. Like, I don't want to be silenced as, like,
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be rude. I'm not saying delete it, avoid it. I'm just saying, you know, like, there's more that needs to be here for the final release. Look at, I mean, we already talked about...
As a middle-aged white man with a podcast, Devon, I don't think anybody's ever going to be able to truly silence us. I think
thank you. I appreciate that.
But I think what it is, what you're getting at is that, and this is something that's been true across all forms of social media for years now, is like people have kind of lost the common sense in having a conversation, right? Like when you go to a message board of some type and it is one that is geared towards, you know, critiquing the game, like say like a review page on Steam, and you put out like your review of the game and then somebody comes back with a whole bunch of reasons as to why they disagree with your review and like not in a nice way, and you're just like, I thought this is what we were doing here, though, is I thought we were kind of being like openly having this conversation about the ways in which we experience this game, rather than like somebody coming at you and just being like, your opinion doesn't matter because you're in the minority here, is like, oh, okay, fuck me. Like, that's not I didn't realize that was a caveat to having this conversation. Nobody put that in the rules beforehand.
Yeah.
And we've, you know, that is a problem, right?
I feel like it's
a space
more
that
of a
is
problem.
built for this.
Yeah,
you should be able to no. It's just if there is a space that is built for you to be putting your opinion out there, people should not be getting so shitty about you putting your opinion out there, right? But
I guess yeah, it's like I think that lack of nuance there, everything that you just described, is where I'm having like the problems with the stuff now, because it's like everybody seems to like X-Men 97. So like the second you bring up like a small critique, people are like, oh, but other people, like, why you gotta be mean to it? And I'm just like, I don't know, I was expecting a little bit more from it. I'm sorry. I'll admit that it's me. I'm not saying nobody should have fun with it. I'm just asking questions that don't make sense about what I'm being presented.
But are you, what kind of space are you in when you're having that conversation? I think is important. Right?
Usually it's like what I'm having with you. I try to have these one-on conversations with people who I know are watching it. And a lot of it is like, people really like it. And I'm like, well, yeah, I get that people like it. That's why I'm trying to have a conversation with you one-on-one.
Right, but that person's not trying to have a conversation with you, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's like when that statement gets said, like that is pretty much an admittance at that point of like, I don't have anything else to say. Like this guy, and again, like that can be a good defensive move when you're talking to somebody if you're in the right space and they're in the wrong space and they're trying to bring something into that space that isn't going to work. Like that is an important part of like having conversations and talking to people about this sort of stuff that I think we've really kind of like completely lost. You know, like I was I was sitting down in an office yesterday and the receptionist was trying to make small talk with me, and she asked if what I'd been watching lately and all this, and I mentioned a couple of things, and she goes, me and my boyfriend have been trying Fallout. And I was all ready for everybody else that's gushing over that show to have like a really fun conversation, because I've also been watching it and enjoying it. And she immediately goes into this like we hate it, we don't understand anything that's going on. Maybe it's because we haven't played the games or any of this stuff. And like I had an option at that point where I could be the asshole that was going to actually like her and like be like, here's all the reasons why you're wrong and why that show is amazing, because that's how I feel about it. Or I have the option to just say, oh, that's a shame. Well, I hope you guys find something else you like, which is a much better way to just end the conversation. I don't want to be in that conversation. I don't want to have to like try and defend why I like a thing or like try and, you know, tiptoe around the fact that like you are also allowed to not like a thing even though I like it. So I'm just not going to have that conversation, right? And I think that is like that is a huge part of it, is that a lot of people online don't have that moment. They feel like they need to get that opinion into that conversation when clearly that's not where the conversation is right now. And so it doesn't need to be there. You know, this isn't life or death. Like sometimes you just got to just kind of wipe your hands and just walk away.
I mean, you have a good point there. I will give you credit for that. I don't know. It's just, I mean, I've had some good conversations about X97. I just wish that, I don't know. I feel like it's everything where it's like, no, but it's G.I. Joe. And I'm like, I know, I like G.I. Joe. Look at all the G.I. Joes I have in my house. I'm sorry that expect them to
You gotta
like.
just remind yourself you don't have to engage, man. Like
Yeah, it's
that's really
true.
what the secret is.
Yeah,
Like we are
yeah,
well, no, but this is part of the problem when they use nostalgia as this marketing tool. A huge part of that comes along with FOMO, right? Like you're using that nostalgia to kind of remind people of what their lives used to be like, and then other people see them kind of enjoying themselves in that way, and they want in on it, and that's how you build that audience. But like what happens to that one person out there that just can't kind of get into it, like can start to really be a rough spot for a lot of these kinds of things now, right? Because you're not going to be the only one that doesn't like what's going on with Wrath of Cobra. You're not going to be the only person eventually that has some negative opinions about X-Men 97. That kind of stuff will come along eventually. And then what will happen is some asshole's going to take it too far and you're going to feel super obligated and weird to defend a show that you don't even really like because you don't want to be that guy. Like this is just the way that these things have all been going
it's
on the
the
internet
Half-Life now.
is
You're
like
right. It's
yeah, it's and so the only real way to really truly politely handle this sort of stuff is like just don't engage with a thing you're not enjoying. Don't feel forced to be involved with it just because everybody else seems to be enjoying this thing. You're not really missing out. It's okay. But they are doing everything in their power to make you believe you are. Like FOMO is a true, real like device that is used by marketing people to try and get other people involved that would otherwise never be interested in their product. It is one of the number one ways, though, that you can get somebody to try your thing despite the fact that they would never try your thing in a million years. Is if you can get five people around them to try it, suddenly they're going to be more interested, you know? And like, you don't have to engage at that. You just don't.
yeah. I know. And again, like you're right, because I've found somebody who's like wanted to crap on X-Men 97, and we had a conversation. But then I'm also like, but now I'm also the weird guy who's like, but that existed in the other show. I know I point out all these things where it doesn't feel like it connects, but like, yeah, the original show did it. Yeah, it is. I'm just a little tired of it. I think that's where it all boils down to, is I'm tired of this being the Discord. And it's also an important reason to have this conversation, because you know what's coming at the end of the week, Sejohn? I didn't think it was going to happen, but somehow it's happening. And I don't know what I'm going to do about it. This is legitimate. This is me seeking advice from you and from other listeners of the show. I'm not sure what to do when Velma Season 2 comes to HBO Max. Or I guess just Max now.
Well, let me ask a couple of clarifying questions, because I don't think we talked about this much on this show.
We did.
How much of the first season did you watch?
All of it.
Okay.
All of it. And like,
what were your feelings about that?
Honestly, I didn't really enjoy it, but I felt like a weird obligation to keep checking it out, like hoping that it would get better, and it like just weirdly didn't. And then like the second season, like they had said that during the writer's strike and everything, that Mindy Kaling had lost her like contract and everything with HBO. So I didn't think that a second season of Velma was coming. I thought that like that was the end of it when like her whole licensing deal went up. So then to see that it's coming, and on some level I'm kind of interested in like the narrative, but the show itself, like, yeah, we didn't talk about it. Because I didn't really want to have discussions about Velma. I didn't want to like start a riot with people or anything like that.
Yeah. Like, but then I would say that as somebody else that also has meh feelings about the show, I don't hate it, but like I didn't care enough about it to bring it up on the show before now, clearly. Yeah. Right? Like I say we have no obligation to watch the second season. If like that would be my takeaway at this point. Like I may or may not end up watching it. I'm not even I'll be honest, was not aware that it was coming out.
Yeah, right, there you go. The only reason that I'm aware is that it's coming out the same day as the Knuckles 6-episode series on Paramount Plus, and I'm very excited about that one. And then it's like, oh, you have to choose between Knuckles and Velma, and I'm like, I'm gonna choose Knuckles, right? Like, I'm sorry. I really like the Sonic the Hedgehog movies. I'm excited to see Idris Elba play Knuckles more. Like,
that's also a dumb conversation because you could finish Knuckles in 3 hours and then just watch Velma.
Right. And Velma's probably going to be weekly again. Like it was like, why would they drop it all at once? Mm-hmm. Like Max uses the weekly release schedule. So I can finish Knuckles when Knuckles drops and then Velma's there if I want to, but you were bringing up, but you saying like having to feel like you're part of the conversation and all of that, like it's a thing to remember, and it's something that I'm going to tell myself. I don't have to watch Velma, right? There's no obligation. This might be the most we've talked about the show on this show, is this right now. So it doesn't mean it's going to keep coming, but it's just been something that's been looming in the background. I watched the trailer, and I don't watch trailers, but I wanted to see if there was going to be a huge shift away, and it really looks like it's going to be more of the same, and that kind of bums me out a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It was a weird show. It was one of those properties. Like my real feelings on it, like summed up in one moment, is like it's one of those times where you watch a thing that is supposedly associated with this IP, like right, and you just wonder the whole time, like, why did they tie it to that? Why is this not just its own thing? Like, if it had just been its own team that was maybe like satirizing Scooby-Doo, like maybe then it wouldn't have had all this weight attached to it that like
Yeah.
it just became
Yeah.
this really weird kind of thought the entire time of just like why did it need to be this? Like there is so much good stuff going on that it just gets weighed down by the fact that it's constantly ghosted by this other thing that it doesn't help it in any way for me. And I don't know.
No,
I don't really know anybody in my life that felt differently than that, so it's hard for me to kind of talk any further about this because like I can't really bounce any like counterpoints out because I don't know any.
I mean, all the counterpoints are like incredibly like negative. Like I agree. There were things that they did with it where I'm like, that was clever. And it would have been more clever if you weren't weirdly tied to the Scooby-Doo IP, but also you can't use Scooby-Doo in this. You can use everything but Scooby-Doo. Like, that was weird. That seems like a weird stipulation. But then the people who are, like, down on the Velma show are extremely down on the Velma show. Like, to the point where, like, I don't know how you let a cartoon make you this angry.
Yeah.
Like, there are real problems in the world. And this weird. I don't know. I just don't know. But yeah, no, that's coming. And I don't think we're going to talk about it here, but it is when you talk about how people have been interacting with things. That's what I think of is the fact that Velma's coming out, and I'm not ready for the like campaign of don't hate watch it because it sends the wrong message. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm not watching it out of hate. I'm watching it because like I have some interest, but then I feel like, is that interest also the reason why it might keep going? It's a lot. I'm putting a lot, and I'm in a weird mood. Thank you to everyone who listened to this episode. I've been in a weird headspace the last couple of days, and I'll admit that. And I don't know. I just don't know, Sejohn.
You doing any other plan to try and keep your mind busy, or what?
Not really. I mean, work has been a thing. We're getting to the end of the semester, so like work has picked up. So I've had that. It's really just not having anything that like I really care about to distract me from when I'm like at home. Like I'm not really doing any gaming at all. I don't know.
I got deep into that 1.6 update. That's what I did.
That's cool. Awesome. I mean, you brought the Secrets of Grindia game to my attention, and I've been playing the demo of that, and like.
Yeah, we got to figure out if we can do the share thing or whatever, the Steam share, or is there an online mode just built into it?
I think there might be. I don't know. I've only played the demo, and the demo was very good. We'll have to look into it. And the demo is great because all your progress in the demo can be carried over into the actual game, which was a nice surprise when I found that like, oh, you have a cloud save for this, and it will carry over to the actual game if you want it to. Like, that was exciting. Like, I'm not going to lie about that. But also at the same time, like, I want to know for a fact that we can play it online before going forward. But also, like, there are other games that I want to play and finish before I leap whole hog into a new game. Right? And I'm just spread so thin, Sejohn. I'm spread so thin. That's what I feel.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've been dipping into stuff, but I have not dedicated to much of anything. I mean, other than Stardew, because I first of all, this is a humble brag. I was gonna say this isn't a brag, but it's a bit of a brag. But like I have the first year of that game down to a science at this point. I've started so many various farms because I've tried a bunch of different types. Have a bunch of different versions on various consoles and like running one with my family, running with my friends, that all that sort of stuff. So when the 1.6 update dropped a couple of weeks ago, the one of the big like articles that had come out like from like Forbes or some nonsense article that some nonsense site that is not normally reporting on video games but wanting to get in on the hype of like new Stardew information was like bad news for Stardew players. You'll have to start from the beginning if you want to see all the differences in the new update. And it's like, first of all, that's been the case for every update. Like the way that that game works and the ways in which it updates. Yes, every time there's a major update to that game, you've had to do it. Secondly, you clearly don't know much about how that game is played by by avid Stardew players. I don't know anybody that plays that game for longer than 30 hours that doesn't have two or three farms started because of various things. You learn to do things better, or you want to try a different type of farm, or you want to just do some silly stuff in this one, but you're actually doing like a series run in that one. There's all sorts of reasons to have various different saves in that game. So like when that was one of the articles that came out about it, I was like rolling my eyes, but it also made me go, I'm gonna start a new farm. And so I started one like just as soon as the update dropped. And within 2 weeks, I got the first year all squared away and my community center opened. And there's still so much more to find. There's so much new cool stuff. But I think my favorite part about it, like one of the things that's really got me going back to it every day for at least an hour, usually three, is there's all these little updates on the map where like there used to be borders like you can't go beyond this point, and like there'd be like a little rock mountain there to stop you, so like you knew that you couldn't go that beyond that, right? It's been updated now where there's much more like live like more like creative reasons why you can't. So like there's a lot more waterfalls in places when waterfalls didn't exist at all before, but those are like indications that like, oh yeah, you can't go beyond this like raging river and things like that. And there's a couple of places where there's like bridges that are like broken and things like little stuff like that really kind of highlight like these areas as opposed to just stone edge that there was before. And it's those little things like walking around the first year and seeing moss on trees for the first time was just like, holy shit, like this is amazing. Like there's this whole other ecosystem now in this game. It really it's wild to think that this is just like still just one dude. Seems like he did get a lot of help from the modding community. A couple of specific modders really kind of stepped up this time and like showed him how they had kind of figured some stuff out, and so he was able to get it into the game proper, which is really cool. But also like this is just one guy. This is just one guy who wasn't even working on this. This was side project for him working on another game right now because he's still working on Haunted Chocolatier, which is like his whole other project that everybody's losing their shit about. Like there's all this other stuff, and this indie game just kind of keeps chugging along. Like every now and then, this like little bit of brightness comes out, and that was really cool to like be able to jump into that again and experience like new wonderful shit in Stardew Valley for the first time in a year or two since because even when 1.5 finally dropped and that was like a huge update, was supposed to be the final one and all that, I had kind of had kind of gotten methodical with the game to the point where like it wasn't that it wasn't magical anymore, but like I kind of couldn't let myself be as excited about it as I am now because I stopped playing for a few months and then suddenly this big thing came around.
I get that. I mean, I'm like that with other things. Vampire Survivors, I know it's a more recent game, but they hadn't done an update in a long time, and they finally just put out a new beta thread of it last week, and I finally unlocked all the new characters and all the new spaces, and I'm excited because May 9th, there's the Contra version, like a Contra DLC is coming out, and I loved Operation Galuga. I'm excited to see that in Vampire Survivors, and it's eventually
The Among Us stuff go.
Fine. I mean, I just unlocked everything. I never did the adventure mode of it. Like, the big issue with that is that it's not universal release, which is kind of a bummer for things. And the one that's sort of dragging it down is Nintendo Switch. Because, like, I want to do everything on the Switch as well. And then when the game just doesn't have everything there on the Switch too, it feels weird. Like,
Yeah.
the reason why they couldn't release any new, like, beta threads and things were getting things out on the Switch and the like. So, and they've added the adventures, and I've played through most of those. So, like, I'm excited. I'm like, Vampire Survivors is something exciting. But now, like, the next time I'm really going to lose my mind. I mean, I'm going to play Operation Guns, the Contra DLC. I'm very excited for that. But when it finally comes to PlayStation, and they're saying that's going to happen Q2 or Q3 of 2024, like, that's going to be the time I play Vampire Survivors again from the beginning with a completely fresh save file. So, like, I'm looking forward to doing that the way that it sounds like you got to do with Stardew with 1.6. So I'm excited. It's coming down the line. But, like, other than that, like, I don't, like, I have all these games that, like, I have semi interest in, but then I don't want to commit to anything. I don't know. Like
I'm
I said,
excited about Paper Mario, but what the hell is going on with Paper Mario right now?
yeah, I don't know. I have no idea.
Is this game coming out or not? Like, what the hell?
Supposedly on 5/23, it's coming out. So, like, we're about a month away from the release, but yeah, I can't find it anywhere. I've been trying to.
Well, and the pre-order nonsense on Amazon, like where they canceled a whole bunch of pre-orders for it.
Yeah, so I don't know what's happening. I'm not feeling great about it. I'll be honest with you. This has been a thought process that I've been having, is like, what's going to happen with this game? Well, because
I was kind of thinking about maybe trying to do the ticket package again. What do they call it?
The vouchers.
You can get the
vouchers.
Games. The voucher package. Yeah, I was thinking about doing the voucher again and seeing if I could do Princess Peach and this. Like, I think this would be a great, like, way to do that. And Thousand Year Door. But then, like, all this weird shit started happening with Thousand Year Door, and I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to, like, dive in and spend $100 if I'm not going to be able to buy that as one of the two games, I think.
Right. Also, now that we've gotten to Nintendo Switch, they had the Indie World Showcase, and the new Ninja Turtles roguelike game looks like interesting times. But again, like, they announced it in April, and it's like, it's coming in July. I'm like, no, I want it now. And I know that, like, delayed gratification and all of that, but I don't know. Like, it's getting to the point where I can't really be excited about a game that's coming out down the line. I want to get excited once I can experience it. Because, like, expectation-wise, it's weird. Like, I think that ties into how I feel weird about G.I. Joe Wrath of Cobra and everything, is that, like, when it's out and it's a full game, I bet I'll enjoy it. But playing it as a demo, like, I feel like I might have made a mistake here. Like, it colored me in a way. And I think, like, Operation Galuga, the Contra demo for that game, it had real, like, issues with how it ran, even on, like, a PS5. So then I'm like, well, I'm still going to try the game because I love Contra, and then fell in love with it. Because, yeah, the demo was a different build than the final release.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's just, I don't know. I feel spread thin, and I don't know. Like, I'm doing things in the real world again, right? Like, I'm getting out there again. And so all the things that used to be my panaceas to, like, get through the day at home have just, like, kind of lost their appeal in a weird way. I need to find balance again. Right now I am searching for balance, and I'm having difficulty doing that. So thank you for listening to me be unbalanced on the podcast. Anything else you want to add, Sejohn? Make sure we cover
I mean, we got some stuff coming up. Keep your ears open when we start to lay out the plan for Brendan Fraser History Month.
Yeah, Brendan Fraser History Month is 2 is a week away, right? So
yeah,
one more episode before we're in there, so that'll be fun. A very special episode coming this week. I'm very excited about, mostly because I've been mentioning it to people and getting a lot of excitement back from it. And that's PCU, just so you can go out and try to find a copy of it, because it is out of print, but you can buy a DVD of it with Airheads on eBay for like $40, and that's 2 great movies from 1994 for a lot of money, but you know, you'll have them in your collection forever. But yeah, we're gonna be looking
selling
at
shit on eBay, Dev.
No, it's not me selling it on eBay. That's what it came to me. I found my copy of PCU in the archive. I was very proud of myself, and then I found out that it's been out of print on DVD forever. Like, it's just, we're covering a movie that you might not be able to find, but there's a significant reason why we're covering it. So we'll see you this coming Thursday for that very special episode on PCU. Any other things, Siege? Anything I'm forgetting, right? Brendan Fraser History Month starting in 2 episodes. 2 episodes and all that. Like, I think we're good, right?
Keep an eye on the Discord. Still looking for people that may or may not be interested in a silly ass one-off experiment with some D&D material. But hit me up there if you are.
Yeah, exactly. And also remember, you can join the Discord if you go to any of our social media pages. It's there, or you can always just send an email to us, thesayReport@gmail.com, and we'll send an invite right there. It's just fun having it. I love having the Discord, and we're working on some other things too, but Sejohn and I got to discuss them, and big things are coming for the Say Report. That's what it is. I know there's been like a couple of weird episodes, but like it's mostly because our minds are elsewhere, and for good reasons, not for bad reasons. But that's me. Anything else, Siege, or should we send this one to Will to bring us home?
Let's send it up.
Alrighty. Thanks for listening, everybody. William, please bring us home.
Thank you for listening to the Say Report with your host Devon Decker and Sejohn Serwick. Please follow the guys on Twitter and Facebook by searching for The Say Report, and you can always subscribe on your podcast channel so this is delivered straight to you and you can enjoy it every week. With apologies to your mother, we'll see you next time.